Heredamos la tierra de nuestros
We do not inherit the
antepasados.
earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. The dream has been the same for all of us: to fly, to soar, to witness raw beauty and become part of nature. Santiago is a city of 5 million people, sitting right at the foot of the Andes. These majestic mountains define the city and make it unique. The city has survived huge social, political, and even geological upheaval to become something of a surprise. A modern Renaissance story. Santiago is absolutely inseparable from the Andes. Their colossal glaciers provide almost all the fresh water for the city and indeed the country. Their color comes from copper, source of the country's economic prosperity. Their raw beauty attracts eco-tourists from all over the world. But the intimidating Andes also provide the stage for one of the most awesome spectacles in modern sport. Sailplane Grand Prix. Sailplane Grand Prix races are brutally simple. A regatta start with all the planes abreast. The first aircraft across the finish line wins. It's fast, it's intense, it's exhilarating. These are the Sailplane Grand Prix pilots. They represent the elite of the sport, and they're here to race. The title of world champion is at stake. To achieve that title, first they need to conquer the mountains. Their sleek machines have no engine. Nobody has a power advantage. They have to race from peak to peak, literally gathering energy off the face of the mountains. Energy comes in the shape of plumes of hot air, or wind that caroms off the mountains. Both derived from the heat of the sun, of course. The sun is their engine.
Even if you take an experienced glider pilot for their first flight into the mountainous area, they are completely amazed by the way in which the energy is available to us to use, and the way in which we can move around the mountains riding that energy that's purely powered by the sun.
There are so many misconceptions about gliding. Gliders, also called sailplanes, are not light. They are not slow. They are not simple. They are slim but heavy machines. Their wings are filled with water ballast to give them mass so they can more effectively slice through the sky. They typically average 140 kilometers per hour. Flat out, they often hit 300. Although they carry various computer systems, navigation, speed, total energy, ultimately moving fast through the air is the result of a pilot's gut instinct. Sarah Kellman flies big planes for a living, Airbus A320s for a commercial airline. She's a captain and part of the airline's senior management. She's also a world-class glider pilot.
The difference between going out on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon and floating around the bay or doing serious offshore racing where the risks and the stakes are that much higher.
Sebastian Kawa is a Polish doctor and the current sailplane Grand Prix world champion. He is very cool, even icy under pressure, and a true master of the sky.
You feel connected to your glider. You feel the tension in the spar, in your tail, and on your flaps. You just feel the air. You even don't need to look at the speed indicator. You just feel it on your stick.
Carlos Roca lives in Santiago and works as a computer engineer. He's a young, local pilot who hopes to beat the world's best in the latest round of the sailplane Grand Prix circuit.
Cheers.
Cheers. Salud. And good luck tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Only first place, nothing less. You have to be a good pilot every race if you want to make a difference in points with the others. Seconds count here. It's all about speed.
Well, I got into gliding just because I always wanted to fly, and initially gliding was a cheap way to learn to fly. Only I fairly soon learned that gliding's a lot more interesting than power flying.
The pilots will fly into some of the world's highest mountain ranges and race wingtip to wingtip over a course that will stretch everyone to the limit. The obvious risk of flying so fast, often just a couple of meters above the rock and snow, is managed through meticulous, even scientific preparation.
How did you do yesterday?
I got stuck in that bottom valley. I went up and down there for half an hour or more, and then eventually went round the long way.
If gliding seems magical, then this is the behind-the-scenes, down-to-earth truth. It is only a deep understanding of the atmosphere that makes the magic possible. Turbulence, ridge lift, and standing waves. These complex phenomena take the place of fuel.
You get cumulus clouds here, and if it's good, you will have clouds along this thing. So they're very good indicators. So sometimes it makes sense before marking.
A glider's flight task is like a racing car's circuit.
It's gonna be exciting, I guess, for everybody. I mean, for Carlos and I, we know the place, but it's still...
When they cross the virtual start line, the race is on. Along the way, the gliders top up their energy using thermals. In their world, these are pit stops for refueling with the same tactical ramifications. Green chooses to climb higher, taking on more energy. He loses seconds, but has the advantage to take a more direct route. Red briefly took the lead, but has to take the long way, hugging the mountain to gain energy in the updrafts. After a few hours racing, it's a mad dash for the line. Red gambles on leaving the thermal early, risking landing short. But Green, with more height and potential energy, can dive at maximum speed, retaking the lead a few seconds before the finish. The race is finished.
First place, Sebastián Cava.
For Sebastián Cava, this is a familiar feeling. This is his third world championship in succession. Carlos Roca took an unexpected and extremely popular second place for Chile, the host nation. The next sailplane Grand Prix final will take place at Wasserkuppe in Germany next year. Then the local hopes will be carried by Super Mario Kiesling, who took the third step on the podium here. But the question remains, can Cava be stopped? It takes talent and experience to extract such speeds from nature. In the daunting gorges of the Andes, it also takes a great deal of courage.
When you're up there flying a glider, particularly when you're racing, you're in the most incredible environment and doing the most amazing things. And it is so complicated and so beautiful. That's why people become totally addicted.
While most sports take place in purpose-built arenas, gliding takes place in natural landscapes. Often in remote locations, sometimes in pure wilderness, always against stunning backdrops, like the Andes in Chile.
Glider pilots generally are very conscious of the environment. And I think that they become very conscious because they see what's happening. Gliding is clean, pure, eco-friendly, environmentally perfect. It's the most wonderful sport.
With its impeccable environmental credentials, there is no better sport to embody the global movement toward a sustainable planet. The sailplanes become perfect icons for these ideals.
When you're up there in the glider, with the exception of hanging on a face on Everest, there's almost nowhere else I can think of where there isn't anybody around you at all. And that actually makes you realise that it's you that matters, and it's you that has to provide, and it's you that has to solve the problem.
Glider pilots are often only minutes away from an emergency landing. Even if they've done all their calculations right and every computer system is working. Up here, the weather is in charge, and birds can read the weather better than the human pilots.
I've got a male condor on the ridge below me. My goodness, that is one of the biggest birds I've ever seen. The birds have been using the thermals and soaring much longer than we have in our gliders, and they really are the experts. They've got an intuitive feel for it, and quite often the birds will help us find the thermals, because they're going to be circling in the best parts of the lift, and if we spot the birds when we go over there, we get great climbs too.
Very big fun today, eh?
Yeah. Thomas Gossner is from Italy, and early in the race experienced a total shutdown of his electronic flight systems.
I had a total loss of power in the system, and I had no navigation by my instruments.
A disconcerting setback for sure. But he managed to take it in his stride and finish the race from memory. Real-time 3D graphics tell the race story. Altitude in feet above sea level, rate of climb, how many feet per second the sailplane is either climbing or descending. The box shows how close the leaders are from each other. Speed and distances are also crucial, of course. The pilot in the lead does not necessarily hold the advantage. Pilots constantly trade height for speed. In this maneuver, Kava does just that. He loses height, gains speed, and goes from third to first. But Schwenk and Vidal now have a little energy in store which they might use later.
In your cockpit, you have really big emotions. You are concentrating on the flight. In the other gliders, it's all things you are concentrating on.
One of the most challenging and spectacular sights is ridge running. When the pilots seek out the wind currents along the face of the mountain slopes. When wind hits the mountains, it has nowhere to go but up. The pilots can ride this updraft. The closer you fly to the mountains, the stronger the updraft. This is where their skills really come into focus. To better read the air, it may give a tactical advantage to hold back and watch which of your competitors has found the best lift. This encourages pilots to race in clusters, wing to wing. Because of their slick aerodynamics, gliders can fly close without disturbing each other's air. On the approach to the final glide, a pilot tends to hedge his bets, keeping just behind his rivals, but slightly offset. He may come across a thermal they missed, but he would be able to get back behind them if they find one. Local knowledge is a huge advantage. It takes time to learn where the best thermals are and how to read the conditions.
Tied with 2 more pilots. It's been a tough competition already, but we are the locals, we know these mountains, so I think we will be better than them.
But the wily Sebastian managed to turn Carlos' local knowledge to his own advantage by following him.
I didn't know how to fly in the south part, and I had to wait for Carlos to show me.
You don't want to be behind. Uli was even closer than to you.
It was just enough to fly constantly 210 kilometers.
I know.
Risk is an inherent part of all sports. It's the successful management of risk that make a sport both spectacular and safe. Many technologies developed in gliding have contributed to the safety and efficiency of commercial aircraft.
Gliders are an incredibly efficient machine. The materials used to make gliders are developed for their very high strength and their very light weight. We had these materials in our gliders 25 years ago that you now see going into the construction of commercial airliners, fighter aeroplanes, cars, and all of this sort of technology. When you look at an Airbus or a Boeing now taxi out on the runway, they look a little bit like gliders.
Captain Chesley Sullenberger, the modest Hudson River hero, has been a glider pilot since he was 14.
When we landed, I had to have the wings exactly level. The nose had to be slightly up, and I needed to be just above our minimum flying speed, but definitely not at all below it.
It's remarkable how many glider pilots are airline pilots, but I'm sure there are a lot of airline pilots who aren't glider pilots.
Astronauts fly the world's most expensive glider on their way home, simply because it's the most efficient way to get back to the ground. It's this efficiency which characterizes the real beauty of gliding. Sailplanes are special because their development has been extremely efficient. Rather than multiple models being developed and then dropped, one single technical concept has been continuously refined and improved, ruthlessly dictated by the laws of Mother Nature. With no engine and very few moving parts, all development has gone into aerodynamics. Sailplanes are near perfect machines aerodynamically. To be competitive at this level, it's important to keep them near perfection. The crews give enormous attention to detail. They check and fine-tune the sailplanes at every opportunity. All surfaces are cleaned with a dedication that borders on obsession. But how can you follow Sailplane Grand Prix? You can't purchase a grandstand seat on the peak of the Andes. You can't put cameramen on clouds. Now the technology exists to develop sailplanes into advanced TV platforms. They'll feature robotic pointable TV cameras, 3D tracking, and high-definition TV feed. The competing sailplanes will be filming each other in a way that was not previously possible, giving the viewer a real sense of being there. These next-generation sailplanes will also be built out of new materials, which allow full-color paint schemes. With colorful and distinctive gliders, air-to-air cameras, and the most talented pilots in the world, Sailplane Grand Prix are shaping up to become fantastic entertainment. As our cities expand and consume more resources, a global Sailplane Grand Prix circuit will be a thrilling yet gentle reminder that we can do better. Seeing what these pilots and their gliders can do, literally out of thin air, it's clear we don't need to burn fossil fuels to make the adrenaline flow. Nature can be used without being exploited. Sport has the power to speak to our hearts, and this sport embraces the most glorious landscapes around the world. Sailplane Grand Prix reminds us that we have an ongoing love affair, a glorious journey with our planet.
Bye.